love football, whether you're a Cleveland Browns fan or not, Deshaun Watson is the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. The job that Deshaun Watson is going to get, Uncle Joe, it is his job to lose. He has 6 weeks to make sure that team is playing above or better than whatever the expectations may be for that team.
Deshaun Watson is going to be the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback. Not maybe, not probably. Ocho said Watson has the job and he has about 6 weeks to prove he can keep it before Shedeur Sanders gets his chance. That is a big claim because this Browns quarterback battle has already been messy, loud, and full of different reports. So the real question is not just whether Ocho heard something. The real question is, can we actually trust what he is hearing? That clip is why Browns fans started arguing again. Ocho is not a random fan on Twitter. He knows players, he talks to people, he has relationships around the league. So when he says he has talked to guys on the team, you cannot just throw it away like nothing. But at the same time, Ocho is also an entertainer. He says things with confidence, he guarantees things. That is part of why people watch him. So the hard part is figuring out what part is real intel and what part is Ocho being Ocho.
I tend to believe him when he says that. I think, but the bigger question is, like, is it going to be for the season? You know, I maintain that both guys are going to start a good number of games next season. What order, who goes first, who comes in relief, I have no idea. But the Browns' track record of starting 4 quarterbacks during one season is pretty long here.
That is the smart way to look at it. Ocho might be right, but that does not mean the story is finished. He may have heard from a player who believes Watson is getting the first shot. He may have talked to someone close to the locker room. He may even be hearing the same thing the Browns have quietly believed since the start of the offseason. Watson gets the first runway because of the money, the experience, and the hope that some version of the old Deshaun is still in there. But there is a big difference between getting the first shot and owning the job. That is where the conversation changes. If Watson starts week 1, Ocho can say he was right. But if Watson gets benched after a few games and Shedeur takes over, then the bigger story was never that Watson was QB1. The bigger story was that Cleveland still did not fully trust him long term. Jeremy Fowler's report makes that part clear. Watson entered the spring as the clear favorite, but Shedeur bridged the gap. That means Watson did not close the door. That means the Browns walked into the offseason expecting one thing, then saw Shedeur make the picture more complicated. And when a young quarterback starts closing the gap before training camp even gets serious, the veteran has a problem.
It's just that Deshaun, with the credentials and the way he has responded to the Achilles injury, seems to be in a good place mentally and physically, would give him the edge. You know, I think in the simplest form, Deshaun is a more qualified quarterback than Shedeur Sanders at this stage. But that doesn't mean Shedeur can't take the job.
That is why Ocho's claim needs context. Watson may still be ahead, but ahead is not the same as safe. If he was clearly better, this battle would already be over. Todd Monken could name him the starter, give him every first-team rep, and move on. Instead, this thing is still open enough that everybody keeps talking about training camp, preseason, joint practices, and live reps. That tells you the Browns still need to see it. And honestly, that's fair. Watson can look good in shorts. He has always had natural talent. He can still throw the ball, he can still move, he can still flash the athlete that made teams believe in him years ago. But the question is not whether Watson can look good in off-season drills. The question is what happens when the pocket collapses, when it's 3rd and 7, when a defender is in his face, and when the offense needs him to make a clean decision. That is where his Cleveland run has fallen apart.
Deshaun Watson is always going to look good with shorts and helmets. He looks great. He's a natural thrower. He's athletic. But the problem is this. It's what can you do when the pocket is collapsing, when there's guys in your face, when you got to make the throws, when you have to have it, when you need to be accurate on the 3rd and 7 and the guy is in your face. That's where football is played.
That is the part Browns fans cannot ignore. Watson has had chances in Cleveland. He's had injuries, suspension, rust, scheme changes, and different excuses around him. Some of those excuses are real, but at some point the team has to judge the player on the field, and the player Cleveland has seen has not looked like a sure starting quarterback. That is why every positive Shedeur report matters, because if the veteran is not clearly ahead, then the young guy becomes harder to ignore. Joe Thomas gave the other side of the debate. He said Watson probably has the leg up coming out of the offseason because he looks healthier, has NFL experience, and brings more movement to the offense. That's a reasonable take. Watson should have some advantages. He has played NFL football, he has been in big games, he is not learning how fast the league moves for the first time. So if Monken starts him, it won't come out of nowhere.
Coming out of the offseason, it seems like Deshaun Watson is probably going to be the guy going into training camp as the starter. He looks pretty healthy coming off that Achilles tear that he had. And I think the experience that he has playing football, the arm looks like it's still there. The legs look like they've come back. And that's one thing Shedeur doesn't exactly bring you right now is the ability to scramble.
But even Joe Thomas's argument does not make Ocho's claim bulletproof. It only explains why Watson might start first. The Browns may want to give him one final chance. They may want to see if the physical part is fixed. They may still be tempted by old tape. Teams do this all the time. They remember what a player used to be and convince themselves that if they can just unlock it again, everything will work. That is dangerous with Watson because 2020 was a long time ago. The Browns cannot build the whole season around a memory. If they give him the first few games and he looks the same as he has looked in Cleveland, then Ocho's 6 weeks part becomes the real headline. Because then Shedeur is not just the backup, he's the next move. And that is why Shedeur's side of the debate is so interesting. He does not have to be perfect to create pressure. He just has to keep improving. If the competition is close, the logic starts shifting toward the younger quarterback. Watson is expensive, older, and already known. Shedeur is younger, cheaper, and still has unknown upside. If the Browns need to find out what they have before the next draft cycle, then sitting Shedeur too long does not make much sense.
But when you take an honest look at the situation, there's no upside to Deshaun Watson. He's not going to be good anymore. 2020 is a long time ago.
If you're close, we know this. If you're close, if you can't make a decision and you got a dude that's played 7 games and a guy who's a veteran that's been in the league 10 years,
Go with the kid.
you're going to go with
Always go with
you're going to go with the young guy.
That is the part Ocho's report does not fully answer. Maybe Watson starts. Fine. But what does that actually prove? Does it prove he won the job cleanly, or does it prove the Browns are giving him one last runway because of the contract and the history? Those are two different things. One means Watson is truly QB1. The other means he's borrowing the job until the team has no more reason to wait. Training camp will expose that. The first few days may still be rep splits and warm-up stuff, but once the offense is fully installed, once red zone work starts, once 11 on 11 gets serious, and especially once the Browns see another team in joint practices, the truth comes out. The Bills' joint work was brought up for a reason. That is where quarterbacks stop being protected by practice reports and start being judged by what everyone can see.
Buffalo Bills will be coming to town. And there's nothing more big than seeing what your guys do against another team that is not reading off cards. We're going to see what you're going to do in these primaries.
And they're all fighting for jobs.
And they're all looking for jobs.
They hurt you.
And then whoever looks better at that point in time, it's very easy to say, well, you know what? We had the primary.
So here's the layout of that, right?
That is when Ocho's intel either gets stronger or falls apart. If Watson walks into camp, controls the offense, throws accurately under pressure, and clearly looks better, then yes, trust Ocho. He had the right information. Watson is the guy. But if Watson looks shaky and Shedeur keeps gaining confidence, then Ocho's report becomes only half true. Watson may start because the Browns want to give him a chance, not because he actually ended the competition. That is why the trust question is tricky. We can trust that Ocho heard something. We can trust that Watson may have a real chance to start. We can even trust that some players may believe Watson is going to get the first shot. But we cannot treat that as the final answer, because the Browns themselves still need live football to make the real decision. And if the first month goes badly, the whole thing can flip fast. The panel compared it to a situation where the second quarterback becomes the most popular guy in the stadium. Browns fans know that feeling. If Watson struggles at home, the crowd will start asking for Shedeur. If the offense looks dead, the locker room will feel it. And if Shedeur comes in and gives the team energy, the story changes overnight.
The best case scenario in my mind is they give Deshaun his final runway and he doesn't get the plane off the ground and that ship has sailed. Maybe even at that time they just push him aside. He is out of the conversation. He's done. Then they bring Shedeur in. He lights a fire, looks good coming in. I think it's better for him.
So, can we trust Ochocinco? Yes and no. Trust that he's hearing something, trust that Watson may be the plan right now, trust that the Browns may want to give him the first chance. But do not trust it as the final truth of the season, because this is Cleveland, this is a quarterback battle, and nothing is settled until the pads come on and the games start. Watson has one last card to play. If it's an ace, he keeps the job. If it's a deuce, the Browns cannot keep pretending. Shedeur Sanders is already close enough to make this uncomfortable, and every rep from now until opening day matters. That is the real story. Ocho may be right about who starts first, but the better question is who finishes the season as QB1. And if Watson gives Cleveland the same version they've already seen, then Shedeur Sanders will not just be waiting in line, he'll be the answer the Browns finally have to try.